Good morning, Sussanax. It's Lane from Outlander Through the Stones, and this is me after I have spent a full night of editing and also a full night of the previous night editing. I have been awake since about 11 midday yesterday, and it's now just after 6:30 in the morning. So bear with me if I start rambling, but I promised that I would talk about how I do everything in producing all of my work that I do. So I've just finished my image of Culloden, which I have to make a confession. I actually started the image about a year ago, and I put it on the back burner because even though I loved it, it wasn't my normal because it was actually very strong compared to my normal. But it's been always at the back of my mind to finish, and I finally decided to put it to one of the Outlander groups that I'm in, and I asked what their opinions of it were and if they thought that the image was too strong, and they said no. So being that they said don't go ahead and start from the beginning, I've continued to edit it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you everything that I've done in editing the image, because this image has easily taken me over 30 to 40 hours to edit. I'm in a lot of Scotland travel groups, and there's a lot of negativity about, I just much prefer that when someone just posts a nice photo and, just something from their iPhone and doesn't over-edit it on Photoshop. There's over-editing and there's editing a lot. For me to be able to work on an image for 30 to 40 plus hours, it had to have been a good image to start with. Otherwise, my image would have looked completely ruined by the end of it. I kind of describe my work as being, I guess, a little bit artistic. I basically do the photography and then I do artwork on top of it. So I work in layers. I work very much with a textured feeling, because when I'm in Scotland and I'm seeing the dramatic skies, I want to bring that out. And when I see the vibrant colours in all the fauna, all the trees and the grasses, I want to bring that out. When I see all the texture and all the detail in the stones, I want to bring that out. Essentially what I'm doing in my work is I'm portraying to the viewer, this is what I'm experiencing and what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing when I'm in Scotland, and that's basically how I'm interpreting to whoever's looking at my work. I don't just simply take a photo and edit it nicely. I spend a lot of time in order to bring out that texture, to bring out that detail, because that's how I experienced it right there in Scotland. However, when you're working with photography, you're basically converting a 3D image, which is whatever scene I'm looking at, into a 2D image, which is basically the digital file. So, you're not going to necessarily be able to show everything. I work as much as possible to get it right in camera, as we photographers say. And then that way, when I'm editing, all I'm really having to do is bringing out the detail that I want to show that I experienced in Scotland. So, there's lots of different points of view about photography, and I don't like it when photographers over-edit it and, so on. It's our work. It's what we're experiencing. It's what we're feeling. It's what we're perceiving in Scotland. And when you go to a beautiful country like Scotland, you want everyone to see it and you want to share it. So maybe some people might find 30 to 40 plus hours over editing, but I can assure you it's not. And you can easily tell when an image has been over edited in an undesirable way versus when you've just done that work to bring out the detail. So I'm going to turn you around to my Photoshop and I'm going to talk you through all the layers. And okay, my apologies, I got interrupted in my video there, but just before I turn you around to my Photoshop, I want to show you what I am appropriately watching, and that is Men in Kilts. So I'm really enjoying this series. I'm actually watching it on binge. I don't have Foxtel, but I'm going to show you exactly how I've edited this image and all the detail that I was really trying to bring out. On the morning that I went to Culloden, it was very early in the morning, probably just before 6 in the morning. It was freezing. It was around 0 degrees. I don't function well in 0 degrees. The clouds were stormy. It was a beautiful Scottish day with lots of rain. And of course, being a mall, when you're walking through the mall in that, it's extremely muddy. So I was trying to walk through the mall with my camera in hand and everything else I had and trying not to fall over. So when I came up to the stones to photograph them, basically what I saw behind me was a dramatic sky, and as a photographer, I love dramatic skies. There is so much that I can do with that. Where I am in the Gold Coast in Australia, we don't really have all that. We have all the nice blue sunny skies, so we don't get to see those stormy cloudy days as much as what you tend to do over in European countries such as Scotland. So that's why I tend to go to play with dark stormy clouds. Normally I would really darken them up and bring the moodiness all about it in my work, but being that I was at the Culloden Mall, I felt like doing something different, and behind the stones it was actually starting to have a nice golden sunset coming through. But what I needed to do in my work, and what took me so long in editing it, is needing to bring out the detail but needing to add my own colour into it. So here you'll see it'll look a lot darker on my phone than what the actual image does, but you'll see how I brought in all of those pinks. Those pinks weren't in the sky. That sky itself is in fact the actual sky. I did not use a sky from another photo, which I often do, and I often incorporate that into the image. You'll see what I mean, that we had a bit of a golden sunrise starting to happen there. The sunrise was starting to bring the sun rays down onto the grass, and that's the kind of thing that I really want to pay attention to detail in, because I feel like that brings in the warmth and it really sort of sets the scene for the day. Looking at this scene, you would have no idea that this was actually extremely early on a miserable morning, around about 0 degrees, pouring with rain. And I wanted to do this scene a little bit differently to my normal editing because of the fact that it is the Culloden Mall. And obviously this is where the Battle of Culloden happened, and it was a major part of what Outlander was about in seasons 1 to 3. And you know, I think if you're like me, the events of it all would have really affected you deeply. So, you know, instead of, I could have easily brought in those dramatic skies, which could have, you know, contributed to the events, but I wanted to do something different. So I wanted to bring in some of those pinks and bring in some of the love, basically. So for anyone who has any idea about Photoshop, and even if you don't, basically what I've done, you can see all these, I guess, well, we call them levels. You might call them tabs if you're not familiar with Photoshop. Basically, all of those levels is something different that I've worked on in the image. For example, where it says plaque shade, what that means is I've actually gone over those letters in the plaque and enhanced the detail there. And by doing it, it obviously makes it stand out more. You'll see a level, say, dodgeball stones. I've gone through all those stones, and in the lighter areas, I've done dodge, and you'll see shade cracks, and in the darker areas, I've basically gone darker. So basically what that's doing is the difference between the lighter areas and the darker areas is enhancing the contrast between the two, and therefore bringing out more detail. And to me, that just further really makes the viewer hopefully feel like they're there. A lot of people thank me for the work that I do, because they tell me, essentially, they say to me, this is the closest that I'm going to get to being there. So these images really mean a lot to me. And that's another reason, apart from the fact that I want to show what I'm experiencing, that's another reason why I work on so much detail, so that you're feeling as if you're there, including going all the way down to these grass areas and bringing that warmth through. And you'll see another layer called exposure, and that's just basically working on the exposure in the sky. I had to really bring that down. We've got what's called a curves level, that's bringing down the darkness to make it a bit more dramatic. And I can't even read that level. Let me see what that says. That one is it going to show me? Oh, that's grass one. So basically, this is the sky. So this is what's helping me really bring down those tones, so it makes it more enhanced. If that was all washed out and brightened, you wouldn't see those colours in that depth that they are. And then we've got another layer here where I've also added some more warmth into that sunrise. So even though throughout the sunrise I was busy enhancing those pinks and bringing those pinks in to bring it all together, I was also adding in some more warmth. So that was from that image. In this one, I'm not normally somebody that adds in a lot of noise. So what noise is, you may see those little tiny dots, and that just adds some more texture into the image also. Another little cheat thing that I do is I work on a Wacom tablet when I'm doing my work, because doing this work is painstaking when you're trying to use a mouse and you're trying to colour it in all upright, whereas using the Wacom is so much easier, because it's essentially like you're drawing on a screen, because you're using a pen instead of a mouse. Now, the thing is with that is whenever you've got two objects, such as the stones here and the sky, you need to make sure that you're drawing as close to the edge as possible. Otherwise, you're going to see a little gap. So I have got a little trick where, if I can show you, bear with me for a moment. Why can I not get... No, it's not going to show me on there. Basically, what would otherwise happen is you'd actually have a little gap in between, even if it's so tiny, and a non-photographer, honestly, might not notice it, but me as a photographer, I notice it. So I actually do a little bit of blur around the edges, and it actually brings it together. So, and that is in here. And in here, I've also used another program that's a plug-in to Photoshop, and that's just to finish off the image a little bit more. So that's essentially why I have spent 30 to 40 plus hours, because every time I'm making a change to the sky, I have to draw around these stones, and they're not just a straight edge, there's a lot of jagged edges there. And the most time consuming part is drawing all along the little cracks and in between the trees, because again, if you're not making sure that you've come up to where you're supposed to be, you're going to get an unwanted line. And again, you'll see how detailed these trees are. So I've literally had to go over each single part of those trees. And that's why it can easily take 30 to 40 plus hours when you're editing an image. But I have to tell you, I am really, really pleased with that. I feel like I've not only brought in the feelings and that I was feeling on the day with all the drama in the sky and picking up all the colours, but I just feel like I'm also bringing in the emotion of the day, because I mean, obviously the Culloden Mall is an extremely emotional place, and it is a burial ground, and it is treated as a burial ground when you do go in Scotland. So that's why I wanted to do something a little bit extra special with that image. If you did actually watch both of these videos, thank you very much.